Branson, and this is a speech about voter ID for class CTA 103. So, voter ID is a very contentious subject that is both scrutinized and praised by various aspects of the political spectrum. And voter ID laws are designed to address election integrity for the right and or some moderate voters, and it's also there to generate certain discussion about its prospects from the left wing, for various groups of people, marginalized groups, etc. So this speech is just an informative speech, and it presents some key arguments from both perspectives in a neutral manner. So, a 2023 Gallup poll found that 80% of Americans support voter ID to some extent, or support requiring voters to show a photo identification at the polls when voting. This widespread support reflects how deeply voter ID laws have become a part of discussions within election integrity and, of course, the opposition, showcasing that it is something that can affect marginalized groups in a negative way. So today I will explain the rationale behind voter ID from the pro perspective voter ID and then the anti perspective of voter ID, and just to show how contentious it is. And this presentation is going to be from a wide range of reputable sources, including the Heritage Foundation, Gallup, the League of Women Voters, and of course the Brennan Center of Justice. So, understanding the factors behind voter ID is important because the policies affect how elections are conducted, and it's quite frankly subject to significant policy discussion. So, previews of the main points we're going to talk about. I will explain the arguments that are in favor of voter ID laws and how they are intended to protect election integrity and election security. Next, I will describe the concerns and criticisms that have been raised regarding voter ID laws. And then, finally, I will discuss the broader implications of these debates on the electoral process. So, main point one, of course, arguments in favor of voter ID. Proponents of voter ID argue that these laws are there to prevent irregularities such as voter impersonation or even fraud or duplication voting, thus helping to secure the electoral process. According to the Heritage Foundation, these laws are intended to promote a secure, transparent voting system that can prohibit voter fraud. And then, as mentioned earlier, Gallup polls reveal a strong public perception that early voting photo ID requirements contribute positively to the election security process at a massive 80% of public support. And we have an infographic here from Statistica that says U.S. public support voter ID laws, early voting, and it's about 79%. So it's very similar to that Gallup poll. 79% are in favor of required photo ID, and likewise with early voting. And even automatic voter registration, the majority of Americans at 65% are in favor of that. And I'll put this infographic on the screen for you now. With these points in mind, it is also very important to consider the criticisms and opposition to voter ID. Hence, this is an informative speech. It's not I'm taking one side or the other. This is just to show you what the points are from both perspectives. So, point two, criticism and concerns regarding voter ID laws. So, some critics raise questions about the potential of these laws to create obstacles for certain segments of the voting population. The League of Women Voters notes that strict photo ID requirements may impact individuals who face challenges in obtaining official identification. So, a 2022 study by the Brennan Center for Justice found that strict voter ID laws can reduce turnout by 2 to 3 percentage points, which in states like Texas, Florida, California, that isn't the biggest deal because they're so heavy for one party. But in states like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, even Georgia, North Carolina, that can be a big difference for, quite frankly, the end result of how states can go in statewide elections. So, as stated, in close elections, this margin can be significant. And having reviewed the primary arguments on both sides, let us consider the overall context and implications of the voting process, which this goes to point 3, broader implications for the electoral process. The debate over voter ID laws highlights a broad discussion about how best to design policies that maintain election security while maintaining high turnout and less potential impact for all groups of people in the voting process. Both the supportive and critical perspectives underscore the importance of carefully evaluating these laws and ensure that any measures implemented fulfill their goal of protecting elections and also minimizing administrative challenges or even without them. And in summary, these points offer a balanced view on a subject that remains extremely contentious and controversial in the modern day and continues to be a big point of discussion. And let's just recap. Today we examine the supportive arguments for voter ID laws, which emphasize enhanced election security, and the criticisms that point to the potential challenges related to voter accessibility. We also discuss the broader implications these debates have for the voting process. And to be frank, the discussion over voter ID laws just continues to remind us the considerations that accompany the formulation of election policies, and a careful balance must be struck between both political aisles, but also including everyone to vote, but also making sure the elections are not to be tampered with, and ensuring security and managing all practical aspects of voter participation is key for all future elections.